it again. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 28th Administration and Public Works Committee meeting. My name is Alderman Braithwaite. I'm chair. We do have a quorum. Councilman Newsma, would you like to read Q1, read us in?
I move in accordance with the executive order issued by Governor Pritzker in March 2020 that we suspend the rules regarding in-person attendance for public meetings and allow the city council and staff to participate in this meeting in a hybrid manner.
It's been properly moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Director Stoneback, do you mind calling the roll, sir?
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Yes.
Councilmember Newsma.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Perfect. All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Administrative Public Works Committee meeting?
I move approval of the minutes.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any changes, edits, or comments?
One very minor technical change that
Please.
technically it was Chairman Braithwaite that called the meeting to order.
Thank you. Will make staff have those edits. Are there any other comments or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please. Oh, Director?
We can do voice vote.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Perfect. So that was the movements for June 14th and then for action. Really good. Director, we have the names for public comments. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 11 names. We'll give you all 3 minutes. I'll ask Director Stonebeck to please keep track of the time. Our first speaker is Joel Freeman. Mr. Freeman, if you can just say your name for the records and then what item you are here to speak on, we'd appreciate that. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. My name is Joel Freeman. I live at 2151 Hartree Avenue in Evanston. I'm also an active member on Citizens Greener Evanston. And the reason for my public comment today is just to compliment the city staff on the sidewalk improvement program changes. They have really taken some great steps to incorporate the goals and actions of the Climate Action and Resilience Plan in developing this discussion and the key discussion points. So I just wanted to express some gratitude that the Climate Action and Resilience Plan is being incorporated into these kinds of decisions in such a detailed way. So thank you all for that effort, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir. Let me start this over. All right. Next up, we have Annie Joseph. If you can please come on screen, tell us your first and last name and which item you're speaking to, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Annie Joseph. I'm also speaking to the Sidewalk Project. I've been a resident of the 5th Ward for 17 years. Our neighborhood is one of the many with sidewalk gaps. You can see that on the inventory that the city staff prepared around Beck Park. That's the park between Emerson and Church, right along the canal in the west end of the 5th Ward. Well, I don't have the history of why we have these sidewalk gaps. They've been there as long as I've lived here. I can't talk to the impact on that. So Beck Park is the heart of our neighborhood. Our kids are there every day. Our block club has activities there. It really is a central place for our neighborhood. And you can see on the map that there are lots and lots of sidewalk gaps around that park. From the 1700 block of Leland, where I live, we cannot walk on the sidewalk to the park. We must step into the street. That creates a safety hazard for our children. It's not easy. One of my daughters uses a wheelchair. We actually have to wheel her over speed humps or in the middle of the street to get her to the park. We have asked the city before about how we could go about requesting a sidewalk, and there was no program. The 50/50 program covers repairs to existing sidewalks, not new sidewalks. So I'm excited about the opportunity for us to have a program that would allow us to fill in those gaps and make our neighborhoods that much more walkable and that much more accessible to our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next up, we have Mr. Patrick Hughes. Please come on screen. Tell us your first and last name and which item you are speaking to, sir. Mr. Hughes going once. Mr. Hughes going twice. All right, we'll come back to him. Next up, we have Wendy Polyp. Thank you very much for joining us. Please turn your video on screen and tell us which item you are speaking to.
Thank you. I'm Wendy Pollock. I'm a resident of Ward 4, and I represent the Environment Board. I am speaking primarily to A11, the RFP regarding the South Boulevard development project. We heard from Paul Zalmazak several months ago when he came to meet with us at the Environment Board about this project, and I just want to say how impressed I am by the way this has been developed, and particularly by those 2 pages that detail all the ways in which this project is expected to support and advance the climate action and resilience plan. So I'm echoing, I think, Joel Friedman's earlier comments, expressing appreciation for the staff work that's gone into this. Also wanted to call attention to the committees, regarding sidewalks that the others have spoken about, that another one of our members sent an email, I believe, earlier today with some additional considerations as you look into the sidewalk issue. And I even noticed there was a third item on your agenda today in which the climate action plan was addressed, which is in the hiring of a new solid waste coordinator, one of whose responsibilities is going to be advancing the zero waste goals. So thank you very, very much for your work, and we'll look forward to hearing how it advances. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next up, we have Mike Vasilko, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me, Mike. Eric Ponders, please turn on your video and please tell us which item you are speaking to, sir.
I'm actually calling in by telephone. My name is Eric Potters. I am a user of the Evanston beaches for over 45 years. I'm a 4th generation Chicagoan that was born and raised in Rogers Park. I currently live in Morton Grove. Over the weekend, I was awoken by one of your beach staff members, and I would just like to enlighten you guys to wake up to what's really going on at your beaches. You're down to 5 beaches: Clark Street, Greenwood, Lee Street, Lighthouse, and South Boulevard. A couple of the beaches have been closed: Dog Beach and Lincoln Beach, which is run by Northwestern. I used to be a beach token holder, and I've basically been the guy last year, if you didn't know who I was, who cleaned up Lighthouse every single day, got to be very close with Derek and other guys with your public works department, spent a lot of time cleaning up your beach. So I'd just like to just inform you guys, I really love the fact that I guess now Alderman Reed has come up with the idea of the resolution with the pilot program, 61R21. But more importantly, instead of waking me up on a day where I try to sleep on your beach at 9 a.m., trying to do a revenue grab, and having your staff ask me if I was an Evanston resident, and I said, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not. That staff member said, well, you can just tell me that you're an Evanston resident and I'll leave you alone. So your staff is all over the place. I talked to the manager a couple weeks ago and I informed her some of the policies that I've been dealing with over the last few years. 2 administrations ago this happened. I took it up with Mayor Tisdall. I took it up with Corporation Counsel Farrar. They did nothing. I would like you guys really to look at your beaches. I filed a police report last year about somebody that was living on your beach and exposing himself to children by bathing. So, you know, Corporation Counsel Cummings, I'd really like you guys to look at I guess, all the laws that you have, because I've looked up your ordinances and codes. Things have changed since 2 administrations ago. But more importantly, with your beach rules, season tokens and daily tickets aren't required. And I'm just going to say that on the record. And early morning, there's dogs on that beach. Code enforcement officers were there pretty regularly last year and they issued a lot of warnings and citations. People are still going out there with their dogs in the morning now that Dog Beach has been closed. People do smoke on the beaches, mostly late night. They're partaking with other, I guess, smoking apparatuses and what have you, and leaving things on the beach. There's a lot of alcohol on the beaches, a lot of bottles on the beaches. Kids are going up on the break walls at night. There's real no enforcement, nothing against Evanston PD. They play a lot of loud music. And the number one thing that bothers me is when I go there in the morning, there's commercial photographers specifically on Lighthouse Beach. They think they could slide in there, do their sets, and leave. So I don't know what you can do from an enforcement standpoint, Corporation Counsel, but I would recommend you contact the chief of police and try to have more regular, I guess, intervention with police squads coming over there. I know that there's security cameras and what have you. You're bound to have something happen, and I try to be proactive. But waking me up on a weekend at 9 a.m. for a revenue grab, well, now I'm going to enlighten you what's happening at Lighthouse Beach. And with that, I'll end my comments. And I love your beaches, and hope next year the beaches will open up. So kudos to now Trustee Reed, and I'll be taking this up with the mayor at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next up, we have Mike Vasilko. Please turn your video on and let us know which item you are speaking to, sir. All right, we will come back to Mike. The next person we have up is Mr. David Reynolds. If you can please turn your video on and let us know which item you're speaking to. You have 2 minutes. Okay, David going once, David going twice. The next person we have up is Miss Holly Reynolds. If you can kindly turn your video on and let us know which item you're speaking to, please. Miss Reynolds going once, Miss Reynolds going twice. Next up, we have Mr. Hugh Bartling. Hugh, if you could please turn your video on, tell us your first, last name, and which item you're speaking to. Hugh Bartling going once, Hugh Bartling going twice. We have Mr. Jacob Isaacson. Mr. Isaacson, are you on the video? Mr. Isaacson going once, Mr. Isaacson going twice. We're going to come back around to Patrick Hughes. Patrick, if you're on the video, if you could please turn your video on and let us know which item you're speaking to.
Well, I don't really want to be on video because I'm playing golf. I don't want to seem like a silly person. But I am. We're in Cherry Golf outing here. Hi, Alderman Braithwaite. Thank you.
Sir.
I just would like to talk about, first of all, thank you to city staff and to the Alderman for your service.
Thank you.
Just listen to, you guys have a lot on your plate, so I want to just say thank you, first of all. The only thing I really like to talk about is sidewalks and just talk about accessibility from, you know, we don't have an ADA coordinator for the city, and I just would like to talk just for a second about Alderman Braithwaite. You were very helpful in some discussions a while ago related to the second ward, but around the second ward in the West End, there's always been safety issues. We've got semi trucks and kids all in the street together, and having a sidewalk program there has always been a need, and it remains a need. And so I'm basically just asking for accessibility, from an accessibility for people with disabilities and seniors and strollers. That's it. That's really, I just want to, I guess, basically remind us how important that is. So again, thank you everybody for all that you do for our city. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your advocacy. Next up, we have Mike Vasilko. Mike, if you can please turn your video on and let us know which item you are speaking to. You have 2 minutes.
Chair Braithwaite, I do not see Mr. Pasoko online.
Okay. We're going to try again. Next, Mr. David Reynolds. Are you with us, sir? Mr. Reynolds going once. Mr. Reynolds going twice. Our last speaker will be, Holly Reynolds. And then Hugh Bartling. Followed by Jacob Isaacson, who is supposed to be in person. I don't see him here. So committee members, just in the interest of time, Luke, if anyone comes on board, if you can just message them and let them know to please sign up for public comments at City Council, we would appreciate it. All right. Members of committee, we've concluded our public comments. We now have the consent agenda. If you have any items that you would like to remove from consent, now would be a good time to state that.
Chair Braithwaite, I'd like to remove A11.
A11,
And I'd like to remove A7.
A7 is off the agenda. A11, Director, is off. Seeing no other.
And A12.
Absolutely. A12 also. All right, and who's here, who's doing the discussion for the sidewalk program? Is that you? Oh, there you go. I'm sorry. I should have recognized you. All right, perfect. All right, folks, we've already suspended the rules. Are there any questions on the bills list?
Now you have to do the consent agenda.
We did bills? I didn't remember reading it.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, it would be on the.
Yeah, consent. All right, so item A1 is approval for the City of Evanston's payroll bills list and credit card activity. Staff is recommending that our City Council payroll in the period of May 24th through June 6th in the dollar amount of $2,077,625.93, and also bills list June 29th in the dollar amount of $3,259,993.49, as well as credit card purchases ending month of April 26, 2021 in the dollar amount of $174,750. Also, members of the committee, A2 is approval of BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity. That's going to be in the dollar amount of $8,702.05, ending in period April 26. I'd also like to move for consent approval of contract with Contact Engineered Solutions for grid separator, bid number 21-2015. That's going to be in the dollar amount of $39,900. The funding of this is coming from our sewer fund. This is for action. Also, item A4, which is approval of the agreement of the Bodala LLC, doing business as Central Rug and Carpet. Sorry about that. Staff is making that recommended, authorized by the city manager in the dollar amount of $104,975. This funding is coming from our CIP fund. This is also for action. Item A5, which is the contract award with Concentric Integration LLC. This is for the supervisory control data and acquisition, better known as SCADA upgrade services. That's going to be in the dollar amount of $314,760. That's also for action. Also for your consideration, I'd like to move item A6, which is a contract award with, again, LLC. This one is going to be in the dollar amount, this is for support services not to exceed $100,000, and this funding is coming from the water fund. That also is for action. Item A7 is off the consent agenda. Item A6 is the purchase of fuel from Al Warren Oil Company, Inc. Staff is making that recommendation for the fuel purchase not to exceed $750,000 from Al Warren Oil Company. This is for action. Item A9 is the purchase of a Peterbilt dump truck and an F-460 truck for Public Works Agency. The contract is for $225,942. In addition, the purchase of the Ford 450 is going to come through the sole source for the dollar amount of $95,036. This equipment, as you can read, is going to be replacing older operational equipment. And then this is for action. Item A10 is Resolution 66-R21, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract amendment for the commercial business institutional multifamily residential building waste services agreement with Groot. This is an extended agreement. Staff has recommended city adoptions of this resolution. Again, that's an extension. That is for action. Item A11 is off, as well as item A12 is off the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Seeing no question or lights, Director, will you please call the vote?
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
All right, perfect. The consent agenda passes unanimous. We'll go back now and take the other three items. Who pulled off A7? Member, do you mind reading item A7, please?
Item A7, approval of a one-year contract renewal for Citywide vending machine services. Staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to execute a professional services contract renewal with Mark Fenn Company, 3000 MacArthur Road, Northbrook. For the city's vending machine services, the contract is for 3 years with a mutual option to renew for 3 additional one-year terms. This contract renewal period will run from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. There is no cost associated with this contract. Mark Venn will share profits from the vending machines as per the schedule included as attachment 1. Their proposal also includes $5,000 worth of in-kind donations annually to be used for events or other activities at the discretion of the city and parks and recreation director.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved.
Were you
and
moving
seconded.
approval?
I'm sorry?
Were you moving approval?
No, I just wanted, I had a few questions
Yeah.
about this. I was just, can someone tell me how many years we've had contract with this company?
Who's the staff on this, Director?
Hemingway wrote it, so.
So there's, Director Hemingway isn't here. Councilmember Kelly, is there another question you might have? And I don't recall.
Yeah, I was just curious if we've, if it wouldn't be in the, taxpayers' interest to RFP this out to see if we can't get better return on this. I don't know. I'm not saying we can, but I'm just curious. I'm not sure. That's why I guess I want to know how long we've been working with this company.
So question, when you say a return,
I understand it's no cost, but it's the idea that I don't know. I know like Skokie, I think it's Morton Grove, and some other cities manage their own, so they, probably taken. I'm just wondering if we visited this to look at possible greater financial returns
did you see?
with other possibilities.
In the memo, it says
Yeah.
there was a competitive bid process, RFP 18-12.
Yep.
Right, I still think we've had, I believe, right, that this, I still would like to know how long we've been working with the same company.
So, we'll try to get an answer to your question between now and City Council, and then the other names of the folks that have responded is on page 67. Are there any other questions for item A7? Seeing no other questions, and we'll try to get an answer between now and City Council. Are you all ready to call the vote? Okay. Director?
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
All right, item A7 will be addressed at City Council. The next item that was called off is item A11. Sir, would you like to please? move
Yes, thank you,
the,
Chair. I don't
11?
have any questions on this item, but
So
I
you have
would
to move it. First, you have to move it.
I would like to move item A11, which is Resolution 65R21, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Housing Authority of Cook County for 504 to 514 South Boulevard Affordable Housing Development Request for Proposals process. Staff recommends adoption of Resolution 65R21, authorizing what I just said, and this is for action this evening.
All right, it's been properly moved. Is there a second?
Second?
It's been seconded by Councilmember Reed. Do you
Yeah, I
want to
just
ask your
wanted to
question?
take this opportunity to echo what Wendy Pollack from the Environment Board said in public comment and point out that that we're addressing our community's CARP commitments, our climate action and resilience plan in this RFP, which is asking for an all-electric building. It's asking for on-site renewable energy in addition to some natural habitat requirements. So this is a fantastic example of the city taking a leadership role in implementing CARP, and I would just like to thank the staff members that were part of making this part of the package, and I look forward to doing more of this, and not only with the city of Evanston, but throughout the community of Evanston moving forward.
All right, this is your jam. Thank you very much for your comments. Seeing no other lights for discussion, are we ready to, oh, pardon me.
One
Councilor
question.
Kelly,
I'm
yes.
sorry, what are the requirements on affordable units for this? Is it 100%, or where are we at on that? For the development of this lot?
I didn't see that, is that in the, do you want to field that question? I mean, if you tell me how many units, I can really, go ahead.
Councilmember Braithwaite, I can
Thank you.
address that, and Councilmember Kelly. We have put a minimum on this only and encouraged developers to consider more. The minimum is 30% of all units being affordable, but there are two different levels. The Housing Authority requires at least 4 that are 30% AMI units, and the remaining would be at 60%. There is no, we don't know how many units total there will be. We've also been paying attention to there is new legislation at the state level that will give a tax credit to buildings that have 20% or more affordability on site. And so one of the things that both we and the Housing Authority would be looking for is we'll be looking at their performance and seeing exactly how much affordability they might be able to get and afford, that may allow them to increase their affordability and push them on that. So as I say, the RFP has a base level of affordability, but we'd like to see more.
Thank you very much. Did you have
So,
another
and then
question?
in terms
Sarah?
of number of units, right now, there's no stipulation or framework in terms of it could be.
Correct. The developers, there is a height limit put on the buildings, and there's some other stipulations about what has to be developed, but there is not a unit count. We have prioritized large units. The Housing Authority units have to be they have to provide at least 2 2-bedroom and 2 3-bedroom, because the current residents would get first ability to move back into that property. And we have also just prioritized large family units, because that's something we're having trouble getting, especially in our TOD areas. And that was something that Alderman Nguyen very much wanted and made sure that was put in there.
And the displacement of the families currently living in the townhomes, what is the plan?
They won't be displaced. They will have the ability to move back in there. The Housing Authority will give them
I mean,
vouchers or
during
something
construction.
short term. Absolutely. The Housing Authority will take care of them.
Alderman Reed?
Ms. Flex, just one very quick question. If you can just remind us, the community, all of us, what are the guidelines for affordability? What percentage of AMI do we consider affordable?
The Housing Authority's units at 30% of area median 30% of area median is approximately the federal poverty level. So those are extremely low income units. 60% is well below what is comfortable to live in Evanston right now. It's hard to say because every unit is going to be a different rent based on the unit size and the household size, and I didn't bring my chart to give you all that, but as of right now, a household of one at 80% of area median is about $52,000 a year. So if that gives you a kind of proportional, does that help?
Can I make an example which might be meaningful not only to Councilmember Reed, but also the other members of the council, that because there's so many variables with this RFP, we're not going to know anything until it comes back. And then after we receive in the RFP, as we have information that we're used to receiving, is we'll look at what the market rate is and then the breakdown with those percentages, and that will make it, I mean, a real
right.
number.
But what is important to remember is we use the Cook County level of area median income. So these are the rents and incomes that are posted by IDA. They're based on the HUD's, what HUD sets them at. And they do not use a local median. So it really is an attempt to really get affordability at a level that is meaningful.
So what is the Cook County AMI?
Right off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
We'll ask you just to email that question at the end.
I will email you the whole chart, and I can do that from my computer, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, this will be coming back to council maybe then.
Right.
Yeah.
And it will really depend on I can make sure that we have a chart that has the relative household incomes and the rents for the different sizes that anyone proposes.
But just very last thing, just generally my question really was, what percentage of AMI is typically considered affordable? So I heard 30% on the low end. Is anything under 100% of AMI is considered affordable? What is the kind of range that
the way we look at affordability is to make something affordable, a household should be paying about 30% of their income. So we have households, most of our households that are below 60% of area median are housing cost burdened. Rental households, they are paying more than 30% of their income already. So even at 80%, we have a significant number of households that are paying more than 30% of their income. And what happens is new people coming in looking for rental inevitably end up paying more because as things go up. So sometimes when you look at the federal numbers and they say there are these many apartments renting at this level, that doesn't mean somebody coming in new to rent is going to get that. That may be somebody who's been in place for 10 years and so that's the other challenge. There's no absolute. I hope that's somewhat helpful, but I will be happy to get you more specifics.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councilmember Kelly?
So just so I'm clear, and I see in the bullet point, I know the city owns part of the land and the housing authority owns part of the land. So the idea is to jointly sell it or possibly to have it privately developed and remain on public land?
Well, that'd be up to the developers to propose what they would like to do, because there could be different financing elements that go along with how they ask to either pay for the property or ask for it to be donated. For example, there is the state of Illinois has donation tax credits that give you 50% of the value of the donation, and that is used very commonly for affordable housing development, and the tax credits get sold to people who need tax credits, and then that is used as part of the development budget. So, but they'll have to tell us.
All right. All good questions, Again, as a reminder, this is an RFP. Sarah, just a quick, I'm looking at the table. It's saying due July 16th. Pretty quick. You're moving on it. Wonderful. All right. Director Stonebeck, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
No.
Okay. Thank you. This will be moving forward to council, and that takes care of all of our items that are on the consent agenda. Next, we have, oh, I'm sorry, my apologies. Item A12, who pulled that one off? Councilmember Kelly, do you mind reading
Sure.
item A12?
Okay, ordinance 57-0-21, amending City Code Section 101110, limited parking to add pilot program at various lakefront locations. Staff recommends City Council adoption of ordinance 57-0-21, amending Section 10-11-10, limited parking to add subsection XQ regarding a parking pilot program. Parking staff recommends Evanston rates to be $3 per hour for streets along the lakefront, with enforcement between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m., 7 days per week from July 1st, 2021 to September 6, 2021. A vehicle registered to an Evanston address with a current year paid will not need to pay the lakefront parking sessions. Staff will install pay stations for coin or credit card transactions, and zones will be created to allow for Park Evanston app payments. Councilmember Suffredin requests suspension of the rules for introduction and action at the June 28th, 21 meeting.
Chair Braithwaite,
Yes, Director.
pardon my interruption. Holly and David Reynolds are online now, and I believe they wanted to speak on this item.
This is the item they want to speak on? All right.
That's my understanding.
I mean, we're well into the meeting, so if you can ask them to come on screen, I'm going to allow them a minute, and they're more than welcome to come back to City Council and make sure they're on that agenda as well. If you can please turn on your mic, and you have a minute. Thank you.
I do.
Can you hear us?
Oh, you're together.
Well, yeah, we live together.
Okay.
Actually.
Take 2 minutes then
thank you.
and be
Thank you,
efficient with your time.
we're
Thank you,
not
sir.
Technically in adept, but we had trouble. This is our first time
Yes, sir.
commenting via Zoom. Anyway,
Thank you, sir.
we want to talk about the value of lakefronts, the Evanston's lakefront to its citizens, and to think about in what does that value lie. Its value lies in its natural properties. There is nothing man can do to improve those. What we can do is make them available to everyone who wishes to enjoy them, and not do anything to diminish what they give us. Proposal for paid parking on the lakefront is contradictory to both. Living here, we are surrounded by man-made objects. We live in an urban man-made world. Parks have long been recognized as vital to urbanites, giving them a way to return to the nature we're all part of, and given the time and the exposure and the mental space, can respond to in deep ways. Anyone who frequents our lakefront sees people doing this every day. People come to sit on the lawn, or on one of the benches, or in the chairs they bring, to read, to talk to friends, and very often to just look out at the lake, lost in thought and clearly losing themselves in the landscape around them. This is what nature gives us. This is far more than just visual. It is the quiet, the calm, the peacefulness, often the scent of grass, the sound of birds, the quiet, which is so different from what we find elsewhere, in the absence of things which characterize our urban world. Anyone who frequents our parks knows that they're used by people of all walks of life. Preponderance of them are people not of great means, some of seemingly very modest means. The lakefront is something everyone can enjoy, and they do. It is ironic to propose charging people to use our lakefront as we finally open our beaches to everyone. Do we lift the price on one group only to lower it on another? It is inconsistent and is not the welcoming community Evanston strives to be. Pay stations give all the wrong messages. They are quintessentially urban. They're aesthetically completely out of keeping with the park's natural world and opposite of welcoming. As the people's parks, they should be available to all without charge. Paid parking has been proposed for lakefront before, and the City Council has always turned it down, recognizing that this is not the way to make money. My wife and I have lived and operated a business in the area east of downtown for decades. I served for many years on the parking and then the parking and transportation committees. That experience has made us very aware of people's parking priorities and habits. It is almost universal that when there is a charge for parking and there is free parking nearby, people invariably choose the free option. In this case, the surrounding neighborhoods. With free parking so close, it is unlikely that the proposed plan would raise significant revenue. Please do what every city council before you has done and leave our lakefront to do what it does so well. Give everyone the pleasures it uniquely gives. Thank you, and thank you for letting us talk at this late moment.
Thank you so much for your comments. Committee Member Kevin, did you read this into, did we read it in? I can't remember after the comment.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I don't think she did make a motion,
Yeah, that's
particularly
right.
because I know you're not speaking in support of it. So I move item A12.
Can you just read it out, please? First.
Councilmember Kelly read it out.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second so we can discuss it? Here we go. So I'd like to move item A12, it's ordinance 57-0-21, amending the city code section 10-11-10, limited the parking to add pilot program at the various lakefront locations. Is there a second?
I moved it, but I'll second it.
It's been also seconded. Alderman Kelly?
So can someone just speak to the costs that will be incurred for this? Just extracting only the costs? In terms of staff?
Mr. Rivera, are you online?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, members of the Administration and Public Works Committee. Mike Rivera, Parking Manager for the City of Evanston. What is the question that you had, Councilmember Kelly?
So what are the costs? I'm not concerned right now with revenue, but just the costs that would be incurred in terms of staffing, in terms of
the initial capital investment is $106,000, and that's a one-time capital investment that's going to cover parking pay stations, signs, signposts, installation by city staffers, and then city staffers providing enforcement, and then the vehicles that they use to provide the enforcement.
for a period of how many months?
For a pilot program of approximately July 1st through September 6th. And at that point, if the council decides that the pilot program is failure and they do not want to vote to continue the pilot program, we can utilize the infrastructure, the equipment that has been purchased to continue to replace obsolete parking meters throughout the city of Evanston. We have various blocks on the southeast portion of Evanston, the 800 through 1,000 blocks of Chicago Avenue in particular that still have obsolete parking meters that need to be replaced with pay stations.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you said 106,000?
Approximately, yes. We're working towards setting up the program for less. We're currently talking with the vendor and trying to negotiate a lesser rate for the equipment.
Thank you.
Councilman.
I have Councilmember Burns, followed by Did you? I didn't. Okay, Reed, followed by Burns, followed by Newsman. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera, for breaking down the cost of the immediate cost. I'd like to talk about another cost, which is the cost of providing free parking, which is a cost. On average, a parking stall for a surface lot cost, what would you say the average stall for a surface parking lot costs the city?
To maintain that if we were gonna let's say I wouldn't say, I don't have the exact numbers to maintain a surface lot. If someone was gonna purchase land and intend on building a parking lot, let's say for 20 vehicles, it might cost somewhere in the $15,000 to $20,000 range per stall to acquire the land and refurbish the parking lot so that the lot can be used for parking.
So 20,000 per stall times 20 stalls is $400,000 for that lot. And approximately.
And that would include land acquisition. So here we own the city streets, but we still have to provide the maintenance that goes along
plowing,
for maintaining city streets, plowing,
electricity
street cleaning, line pavement, markings, pothole patching, resurfacing periodically every so many years.
plus the lost opportunity of having something more productive than a parking lot there. So this is an expensive endeavor already just to provide the parking.
That's correct.
Quite an expensive endeavor. And, you know, and to provide this parking for free would be, I would consider it a subsidy to encourage people to drive their cars and park. And so I think it makes sense for us to charge for parking and ensure that this very expensive infrastructure that we have to maintain, which I will remind folks, I think Ms. Biggs maybe can give this, we have an unfunded infrastructure liability of $100 million plus, is that correct, roughly? Yeah, and so we have an unfunded infrastructure liability of $100 million plus. We're providing free parking. Each stall, you know, over its lifetime is somewhere $15,000 to $20,000 for a service lot. We have the lost productivity of that land. I think it makes sense for us to, you know, make sure that we're recouping the cost of providing this parking, so we can do the things that we say we really care about, such as providing affordable housing, ensuring that we're keeping up with our infrastructure, so residences in my ward, in the 5th Ward, or anywhere in the city don't have lead pipes leading to their homes. And so I am fully in support of charging, and I do believe that we should, particularly next year as we look to make Evanston beaches free for all, I think we should look at Evanston residents also paying for parking. I will say that at the downtown parking garage, someone can park for, let's say if someone wanted to park for 3 hours in a downtown garage, what would the price be?
That would be $2. But if somebody wanted to park in the downtown garage for 60 minutes or less, it would be free.
Right. So someone, well, but likely if they're going to the lakefront, they're going to be spending a couple hours. So someone could park for a few hours downtown at a garage for a nominal fee for less than this, and walk or bike or find some alternative mode of transportation down to the lakefront. So with that, I'm quite in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Nusma, followed by Councilmember Kelly. Oh, gosh, I keep doing that. My apologies. I'm going to stop turning off the light before people speak. Go ahead.
Director Rivera, have you considered a daily parking option or a seasonal parking option?
We haven't considered that, but that's something that if the council proposed, that's something we would certainly consider. We were trying to implement this program as quickly as we could because the summer is already upon us, and we were trying to get some direction and a short pilot so that we can gather some data, and if that's something that the council wishes, we can certainly pursue going that route after the initial pilot program has been expired.
Thank you. Were there any other questions?
Yeah, and I missed it. So $2 for how many hours in a parking garage downtown?
$3 for 3 hours or less, and the first hour is free in a parking garage.
And how many available spaces in any given time? I'm just trying to get a sense of volume. You know, as we see an increase in usage, do we just feel we have enough to, you know, to address any increase?
It definitely fluctuates, Councilmember Burns. You know, right now our garages are probably operating about 50% prior to COVID-19 numbers. So we have plenty of availability currently. But even throughout the day, you know, they would fluctuate prior to COVID-19 as well, occupancy.
And then what does street parking look like around the lakefront? Do have people, you know, petitioned or whatever the process is to create residential parking zones along the lakefront, or what can we anticipate happens once this goes into effect as people look to find free parking in the area?
Sure. We have what is called residential parking districts here in the city of Evanston. We have over 25 residential parking districts in all portions of the town, near the high school, near Howard Street, near the Central and Wilmette borders, and as well along the lakefront areas. So there's already a numerous amount of prohibitive parking for individuals to solely use if they have permits, or some will be a combination of 2-hour parking or a resident that has a permit that can park there for the duration of the day or 24-hour period.
That's all your questions. Thank you very much, Councilmember Burns. Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Next,
thank you,
Councilmember Newsma.
Mr. Rivera, with regards to the cost of the equipment, you mentioned $106,000 in capital cost, and if we did the pilot and then discontinued the pilot, we'd eventually use that equipment elsewhere. Does that mean that if we don't do this pilot, we'd eventually be spending $106,000 for parking kiosks anyway?
That's exactly what that means. We currently need about 14 to 18 units to finish replacing single-space parking meters on the southeast corridor of Main and Chicago Avenues. So even if we didn't pursue this pilot program, we may potentially still have to purchase more parking pay stations to finish removing those equipments. Now, the capital investment for the equipment, solely for the equipment, it's going to be somewhere in the $79,000 to $85,000 range, just for the 10 parking pay stations themselves. The rest is signs, and then staff time to install the signs, and then staff time to enforce the parking areas, and then the vehicle that they're using, and the fuel costs, and everything else associated with managing that time along the lakefront.
Thank you. And as I understand it, the proposed pilot is essentially for every beach in Evanston?
No, it's not for every beach in Evanston because of the time, the time constraints that we have, and we're fastly approaching, summer. So this is for 4 areas that we've identified. We've identified Sheridan Square, so South Boulevard Beach. We've identified Lighthouse Beach, the parking lot adjacent to Lighthouse Beach, and then the 1,500 blocks of Sheridan Road, which is the Dawes Park and Arrington and Lagoon parking lots. And then the 1,700 and 1,800 blocks of Sheridan Road, which is along Clark Street Beach.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a tough one. I'm on the fence. I want to bring people to the lakefront. I want to make sure we are bringing in enough revenue to support the lakefront and make it accessible and enjoyable for everyone. I'm also concerned about the process here and trying to rush something through without sufficient, public engagement. And, we're here, 3 days before it would go into effect. So I'm probably going to vote no on this one.
So.
Thanks.
Okay.
So, may I comment?
Yes.
Yeah,
And then I'm sorry.
If I may add, Mr. Chairman, if I may add one thing, again, I want to emphasize that this parking program would not adversely affect Evanston residents. They would still, as long as they have their vehicle registered in Evanston with a current year paid wheel tax, they would continue to be free for them, and they wouldn't have to do a single thing when they went to patronize the lakefront areas. They would just park as normal. We would patrol the lakefront, and we would identify, parking services would identify the vehicles that are Evanston residents, and residents wouldn't have to do anything. Secondly, this is a good way to enter into exploring dynamic demand-based pricing and dynamic tiered pricing, which in the past, when we've had parking meter rate increases, they've been gone up holistically around the entire city versus the areas that have high demand. So this is a good way to start engaging in that incremental increases instead of just raising parking rates throughout the entire city.
1, 2, 3. I'm just taking a straw poll on this just to see where we are. I think there are enough votes to move this forward to City Council. I just want to be mindful of time because we have another meeting that's supposed to start at 5:30. Mr. Rivera, you have the numbers for everyone in the event that they have additional questions between now and P&D. If your vote is hinging on your question, can I strongly suggest that you contact Mr. Rivera and then get your question addressed, because we're going to repeat the same conversation at council. It doesn't make sense to beat it up now and then just have to repeat ourselves is what I'm going to suggest to the members of the committee, and this is our last item. Does everyone have Mr. Rivera's number? If not, I'll make sure that you do. All right. I appreciate the conversation, and out of respect for time in the next committee, I see the chairperson already here and staff assembling. Mr. Stonebeck, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Nay.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
No.
All right, the ayes have it. This will move forward to City Council, where I can assume that there will be more conversation. I will encourage you all again, in an interest of time, if you have a very specific question, you probably have an hour plus to reach out to Mr. Rivera. All right, seeing no further lights for consideration, our meeting will, we do have, oh, good Lord, the discussion on the sidewalk. Who has that? Come on up. Thank you, Mrs. Bates. I try.
Thank you, Chair Braithwaite, honored members of the committee. My name is Laura Biggs. I'm the city engineer. And today I'm here to talk about sidewalks. So I just want to do a background. I'll try to go through this pretty quickly. We have approximately 270 miles of sidewalks within the city. Sidewalks are built within the public right-of-way, although they do appear like they are in people's front yards, but they are ideally set back from the curb line so that, both for safety reasons and so that when we plow snow, the snow doesn't pile up along the side right on the sidewalk, but into a parkway instead. And generally speaking, in the city of Evanston, and this is supported by our city code, maintenance is the responsibility of the adjacent property owner, and the new sidewalk is generally constructed by either the city of Evanston or the developer that is improving the property. We have a sidewalk failure problem. There's multiple ways that sidewalks fail. The biggest way by far is through tree roots, usually from a parkway tree, often owned by the city of Evanston. They can also fail through just general cracking and deterioration. They get hairline cracks in them over time, and then freeze-thaw action just pops the concrete out and creates a big spalling action. Also, we get settlement during utilities. This is particularly around sewer lines that develop cracks, and then soil sort of moves into them, causing a settlement. And then sometimes we get an uneven settlement where kind of a whole line of sidewalk will tip to one side, creating a low spot on the edge where you'll get ponding and icing in the winter for a significant section of sidewalk. This usually crosses properties. We have various programs for repairing sidewalks. They're not comprehensive, but they are when we do a planned unit development or major building remodeling that is private. And these occur primarily in commercial and business districts. We ask the developer to bring the adjacent sidewalk up to the current city standard. In a commercial district, that is typically a concrete sidewalk with a brick ribbon. On streetscape projects, which are done by the city of Evanston, where we are looking to redo the entire street from building face to building face, we address street lights, traffic signals, street resurfacing, all sorts of things, and that also typically includes a sidewalk where, again, we look to bring it to a current standard. And then we have the 50-50 sidewalk program, which occurs primarily in residential areas. The program works, the 50-50 sidewalk program works by having a 50% cost share between the city and the adjacent property owner. This has typically been around $100 per sidewalk square, but in this year's bid, it ended up being $132 per sidewalk square. This program is entirely voluntary currently. We only deal with small repairs, typically no more than 1 to 3 squares per property per year. It replaces existing sidewalk only, not new sidewalk, and it's funded through general obligation bonds, approximately $180,000 per year. Additional $70,000 comes from private funding from the 50% cost share. The reason it's not exactly half is because when sidewalk problems are caused by a parkway tree planted by the city of Evanston, which is a lot of cases, then the city pays the full share of the sidewalk repair. We also do some repairs of sidewalk adjacent to city facilities and parks where we are the adjacent property owner. If you wish to participate in the 50/50 sidewalk process, it's a pretty convoluted process, actually, that involves quite a lot of staff time. So it all starts with a 311 request. That is how sidewalk repairs are monitored. That's how they begin. And so if we receive that, our Streets Division and the Public Works Agency goes out to the field, assesses the sidewalk, provides a temporary patch if necessary, forwards the location to the Capital Planning Bureau, which puts it into the 50/50 sidewalk database, where an invitation is sent to the property owner. If the property owner wishes to participate, they mark the squares that they want to fix. Staff goes out and verifies the squares. Staff sends an invoice once the bids are open for the actual 50% cost share. Often that letter goes unanswered, so we have to follow up 1 or 2 times. If the owner still wishes to participate, and up to this point they've made no commitment, they can pay the invoice, and then the sidewalk gets forwarded to the contractor for permanent repair. We have approximately 156, on average, temporary repair requests, which then get into the 50/50 program eventually, and we have approximately 183 requests annually, where the 50/50 program is the direct request. Nobody's made a comment about temporary repair of the sidewalk. So 340 locations per year. Not all of those end up in the 50/50 program because it is voluntary. We also have, separate from that, many locations around town where sidewalk was never installed. The public right-of-way does exist, but for whatever reasons, the sidewalks were not built. We refer to those as sidewalk infill or sidewalk gap projects. We currently do not regularly fund these. So a rough overview of scope. This map that is shown in the presentation and in the memo is really just for the last 3 years and indicates where sidewalk repairs were requested. It's notable in that you can just kind of see anecdotally that in the 5th ward and the 2nd ward, fewer repairs are requested and implemented. Total, the staff estimates approximately 19 miles of repairs are needed, which is about 7% of our sidewalk system, and we estimate the total cost at $6 million, which we do not address annually. Simultaneously, there's another map that covers the sidewalk gaps. This map is really incomplete. We actually have a more complete inventory that's not yet into the map system because of staffing resources, but we've generally estimated 15 miles of new sidewalk installations are needed, which would be about 6% of the sidewalk system, estimated $9.7 million. Now, we went through and we just evaluated the program across several city goals that are floating out there, and the first one being CARP. It is a program action goal for CARP and transportation mobility to expand our safe, complete network of sidewalk for pedestrians, bicycles, and transit. And in this, our existing program is pretty non-compliant. The overall quality of the sidewalk, we're just not keeping up, so it's declining each year. It's not complete because there are gaps. And mass transit, if you are using that, your first leg from your point of interest to the transit stop and your last leg from the transit stop back to your point of interest is usually walking. And so without an effective sidewalk network, you're really not able to support transit in the same way you would like. We also evaluated against equity. There really hasn't been a formal equity goal adopted, but city staff has been kind of going through and evaluating programs with an equity lens. Again, this one's really not compliant. The locations are self-reported. Not all property owners want to participate, even if they can afford to. They maybe just aren't interested in filling out the paperwork. The existing program is definitely not equitable to citizens. Our community members are include people in vulnerable populations such as children walking to school, seniors, people with disabilities that are using mass transit. It's just not friendly to some of our most vulnerable community members. And this program is not really implemented equitably throughout the city because it is relying on voluntary participation and community member self-reporting. So when I say equity, I include some pictures because I think we've all seen plenty of black patches around town, but when you look at some of these pictures, it's pretty challenging to see how somebody who is in a motorized scooter or a wheelchair would even navigate some of the differences in heights that can be caused by some of the sidewalk repairs. Here are some locations where we have gaps. This street is Hartree Avenue. It's located next to the facility that contains the ETHS Alternative School, the Erie Federally Qualified Health Center, the Have Dreams Private School, and there's not really sidewalk on either street or a protected place for pedestrians. The picture on the left is located in a primary drop-off area for another school in Northwest Evanston. The picture on the right is on Grove. At the end, in the horizon, you can't see, but is Hill Education Center. This street is the primary emergency evacuation route for them to get away in case of a fire. So they will take all the preschool children and walk them down the street that has no sidewalks in the event of emergency. And just generally, there's a lot of areas where people basically going to and from their businesses adjacent to transit are walking in the street. And in bad weather in particular, that's a little bit of a safety issue. And the final goal we looked at is just the general city council goal of investing in infrastructure and facilities, and for similar reasons, non-compliant. So there's several barriers to the program improvement: city funding, lack of property owner resources, both money and time. And then there's some resistance to property owners who've spent a lot of time and effort on landscaping in their front yard where there was no sidewalk and are resistant, understandably, to now having that divvied up with a sidewalk crossing it. Many times when we're talking about sidewalk gap, this is the area we'd be putting a sidewalk where there are trees, landscaping. Towards the back of this picture, you can see the sidewalk ends where there's a private fence. This is at King Arts School across the street, again in a primary drop-off area. It's harder to see in this picture, but there's a significant slope in addition to the trees that are in the way. So in order to actually put a sidewalk, we would need something like a retaining wall. There's rules about ADA that you can only have a maximum 2% cross slope. And we would likely have to remove the trees, or we would have to do something else more creative to try to figure out how to add sidewalk. So these projects are often quite challenging. But nevertheless, in order to meet all of these different goals, we do need to make some changes. And those changes need to be, or should include, something to the effect of making sidewalk repairs mandatory. Whether or not property owners are required to pay for them, they shouldn't be subject to property owner whim. And then providing financial support for residents that are income qualified, and then fill in these sidewalk gaps. So this is where we're requesting direction on how to proceed for 2022. There are 6 options that staff has come up with that are detailed more fully in the memo, but they include increasing the funding. Option 2, doing a mandatory 50-50 participation for the 2022 pilot program. And again, I'm not suggesting all of them. I'm suggesting we would like guidance. 3, trying to determine some sort of method for income qualification, which if it only applies to this program would have to be very simple since we're talking about single squares of sidewalk in many cases. 4, start implementing sidewalk gap and fill. 5, incorporating equity into how these decisions are made. And 6, trying to consider alternate funding sources, although the alternate funding sources that are easy to use are geographically limited, and staff would then, barring any other suggestions, would need to increase the amount of general obligation debt that is sold to fund sidewalk improvements. And with that, discussion.
Thank you very much. What I would like to suggest in the interest of time, I'd like to start a P&D 10 minutes to 5. As you all are thinking about your comments, to give up to a minute, and then I will encourage you to reach out to Laura Biggs afterwards. The first slide that I have is Councilmember Reed, followed by Councilmember Nusma, and then you can have your direction. Just two quick things. Councilmember Burns, if you noticed the comment about the second and fifth, there are a couple of things that our areas have in common, and that's CBDG and TIF. And over the last 10 years, there's been a significant amount of infrastructure repair in those two areas from the former alderman, so that is a good thing. My one comment that I have, and then we'll open it up, is I'd like to target where the safe school routes are. We were able to use that for the block west of the one on Hartree that you mentioned. That's a very complicated block, as I'm sure you will, as you look at these locations in your various wards, will see some sidewalk projects are easier than others. So to keep that en route as you prioritize citywide, I think that's it for me, and I did that under a minute. Councilmember Reed.
Hi, Ms. Biggs. I am curious, what is the unit of measurement so a mile, can you tell me what the annual cost of maintaining a mile of sidewalk might be?
And can I suggest the fact-based questions? And I just want to be respectful of the next meeting. If you have questions in terms of direction on the policy, you might want to share that. And if there are other fact-based questions so that she doesn't have to pull it out of nowhere, I would ask if you want to just write those down, and then you can provide it in email, and that way we can all benefit from it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would have to actually do a quick calculation to be able to figure that out, but I'll send that to you.
Okay, and then, I'd want to know what the annual cost of maintenance, and so obviously we don't spend on every sidewalk every year, but we should be tucking away money knowing that. And then, so I think it was in there, I was going to do the cost very quickly here, but how many miles of sidewalk do we have in Evanston currently? Just to think about what is the annual cost, or the annual dollar amount that we should be setting aside to keep up with sidewalk maintenance, and maybe understanding what the unfunded sidewalk liability is.
So earlier in the presentation, we talked about the unfunded sidewalk liability, which I believe was around, I can look it up certainly, here we can just go back, so I'm not giving you false information. So $6 million for sidewalk repair and replacement, and $9.7 million for sidewalk gap infill. And then the staff is proposing as one of the options that the long-term annual increase under option number 1 on this page would be to increase repairs from $150,000 a year to $350,000 a year, so that we are grabbing all of the locations and a little bit of the high priority backlog, and then that we do gap infill at $300,000 a year, where we're currently funded at $0, in order to be able to address the many gaps around towns.
All right,
and
thank you.
If we were at that number, we'd be keeping up, or would we just keeping up with the status quo, or would we actually be making progress on lowering that unfunded liability?
And I'm going to ask you to hold that question, and you can respond to him and the rest of the committee in interest of time. Next, we're going to take Councilman Nusma.
Thank you, Chair Braithwaite. Thank you, Ms. Biggs, for the presentation. So just to provide the feedback you're asking for, in my opinion, sidewalks shouldn't really be any different from streets, in that they're a community asset used by the entire community for the benefit of folks in the community. So, ideally, homeowners should not be asked to fund sidewalk improvements or repairs any more than we would expect them to be asked to fund the pothole repair in front of their house. I understand we need to find the money somewhere, but that is the conclusion I come to when I look at this through an equity lens and through a climate action, environmental lens. I know you're approaching the problem from those two perspectives as well. And I appreciate you looking at it through those lenses, and I can follow up with some more feedback offline.
Thank you.
Do you feel that you have enough direction from the committee members? Are you good?
Yes.
Perfect. If you have any other questions, I encourage you to please reach out directly, and we look forward to having you come back to the committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. All right, seeing no further business in front of us, we'll adjourn this meeting. Councilmember Nguyen, will you be ready in 5 minutes? Our next plan development meeting will begin at 5:50. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.